How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather SpongeBob 1000, and in this video we're going to focus on 3 winter storms that are expected to impact the Midwest and Northeast, where we could see areas experience well over a foot of snow over a large portion of the Midwest, as well as potentially the Northeast in the very near future. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. So let's begin by taking a look at the GFS model right now, and we do have a snowstorm that's lingering right around the Midwest at this time. It is expected to dump close to, if not over, 6 inches of snow in a large portion of Iowa and southern Minnesota, where you could experience up to 10 inches of snow in localized areas. We do see this area of snow right here, and while the area of snow isn't necessarily large, this snow will fall at a very fast clip. So this snowfall will accumulate fast, despite the fact that it's relatively small in terms of size, as there's just enough instability to create those stronger snow bands as a result of a higher level of convection associated with this pressure gradient between this low pressure system and this ridge. So we're going to see the snow bands quickly become a lot more heavier as the low pressure system continues to move eastward, and we're going to see that heavy snow extend to Wisconsin as well, to where Milwaukee could get involved with some heavy snow with this first snowstorm. But there's also a second snowstorm we're keeping track of, which should focus in more on the Northeast, where a large portion of the Northeast could experience 3 to 6 inches of snow as we approach the weekend's time frame, where we do see the northern portion of the Northeast, and this includes the larger population areas such as Connecticut, Boston. You do experience some snowfall associated with this low pressure system, and the current consensus is that we should see maybe right around 3 to 6 inches of snow based on what the GFS and the European model is stating. But there could easily be a possibility the snowfall could be higher if there's a higher level of convection that the computer models currently don't detect, which is certainly possible because there is quite a bit of cold air that's going to be behind this low pressure system, and depending on how much cold air there is, that will determine the amount of instability and the amount of lift and convection we're going to see in the Northeast to really determine the exact snowfall accumulation amounts. But as of right now, I'd say the certainty with this snowstorm is pretty high. It seems like both of the computer models are honing in towards one scenario where the heaviest of the snow will be centered more towards upstate New York and even into Connecticut, while New York City, it's going to be a close forecast for you guys. Any small shift in the track will make a big difference in terms of whether or not you experience snowfall or accumulating snowfall. That still has yet to be seen where exactly the storm will move, but current consensus is that New York City won't necessarily experience accumulating snowfall, but there's still but of course there's still a possibility you will experience at least snow falling from the sky, but it won't necessarily stick onto the surface, as it seems like anywhere that's just south of the Interstate 80 corridor, the temperatures are a little bit too warm for the snowfall to accumulate, as the temperatures right around the New York City area should hover right around the upper 30s, which is a little bit too warm. The snow, it needs to be at least 35 degrees or lower for the snow to actually have a possibility of accumulating. But there's still that possibility of snow flurries right around New York City associated with this storm. But further northward into Connecticut, upstate New York, Massachusetts, and a large portion of New England, you could experience 3 to 6 inches of snow associated with this snowstorm. And taking a look at this third snowstorm, which will likely become the most significant of all, we do see that we're going to see quite a powerful trough move ashore along the Pacific coast, and with it we're going to see a lot of cold air behind it and a strong northerly flow that will induce a highly unstable environment right around the Midwest, where this low pressure system will continue to strengthen as it continues to head further eastward, and this instability will only be enhanced, and the strengthening process will only be enhanced by the fact that there's going to be a low pressure system that's going to hover right around eastern Canada, which is going to bring a persistent northerly flow towards the northeast, bring those temperatures down well below average, which should create another area where the air will be very unstable for a new low pressure system to form as this initial low pressure system continues to move eastward. Of course, we see a big jet stream dip associated with this strong northerly flow push that this low pressure system is creating on the western side. And as a result of this, we sort of see a negative tilt, and this becomes and this sort of attains a classic mid-latitude cyclone look, where we see thunderstorm activity on the southeastern side, and of course a lot of moisture on the northern side of this storm in the form of snowfall. And this snow is very heavy at times. There's a high amount of instability, so we're going to see a high level of convection, which will bring heavy snowfall, well over a foot of snow, to many areas in the northern Midwest, which is likely at this point, since the European model also agrees with this scenario. Taking a look at what the GFS model is stating even more in the long-term future, we do see that as a result of this persistent cold air that's going to stay in the northeast, we're going to see another low pressure system develop right around the Ohio River Valley, thanks to this instability these northerly winds are bringing to the northeast. And as a result, the northeast could get pounded by heavy snow as well, where we do see a large portion of the interior northeast get heavy snowfall. And New York City it's going to be another close forecast for you guys, but it's still highly uncertain. We need to wait and see if there will be necessarily enough cold air for a new low pressure system to develop, as well as the fact that there needs to be enough cold air for this precipitation to fall in the form of snowfall. We're just going to need to wait and see how much of a strong northerly flow that this low pressure system centered towards eastern Canada will bring to United States to really determine if we're going to see a significant snowstorm and nor'easter for the northeast. And there could, of course, be that possibility the snow could shift further southward to where New York City, and even as far south as Philadelphia, could get involved with heavy snowfall. Boston as well will need to pay close attention to this, but we see a powerful snowstorm, and the interior northeast is easily experiencing over a foot of snow. So taking a look at the snowfall accumulation forecast, based on what the GFS model is stating, the total snowfall accumulation forecast. Let me switch to that. So taking a look at this, this is assuming that 1 inch of rain equates 10 inches of snow. The GFS model, at least for this first snowstorm, is expecting a large area of 6 to 12 inches, extending from Milwaukee and as far west as the western portion of Iowa and the southwestern portion of Minnesota. So you need to pay close attention tonight and tomorrow morning, because that's when the snow should be the worst for Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota. But if I were to continue to move even more forward, we do see the snow eventually, that the second snowstorm will move into the northeast, and we see heavy snowfall throughout Connecticut, Massachusetts, upstate New York. Albany gets involved, as well as the northern portion of Pennsylvania, while the New York City metropolitan area in this scenario doesn't get much of any accumulating snowfall. Of course, there's still that possibility that any small shift in the forecast could bring that snow a little bit further southward into New Jersey and New York City. So you definitely at least need to be aware of this, even if you're just south of the upstate New York and New Jersey border. And even Boston could get involved with some snowfall as well, where Boston is experiencing 1 to 3 inches. And then there's this third snowstorm, which is expected to be the most powerful of all, where we do see not only areas with receiving over a foot of snow, but we see areas exceeding 2 feet of snow, which would be just very historic for a large portion of the northern Midwest. And I'd expect it to be a blizzard based on the millibar pressure this storm is expected to drop to, where the air pressure will be very low for a lot of the air molecules surrounding the low pressure system to want to filter in and create those strong winds associated with this snowstorm. So a blizzard is certainly possible. We do see areas over 30 inches associated with this snowstorm, and this snow extends to Minnesota, Wisconsin as well, where major cities such as Minneapolis and Milwaukee get involved. And then this snow, of course, has the possibility of moving into the northeast, where we do see heavy snowfall throughout the interior northeast, and New York City isn't very far from this heavy snowfall, and Connecticut gets involved a little bit too, and Boston is pretty much right at this snowstorm's doorstep. So it's definitely something to keep in mind in the northeast. Again, it's really all going to depend on how much cold air will be centered in the northeast to really determine if we're going to see the precipitation associated with the storm fall in the form of snowfall and enough instability to create a powerful nor'easter to bring that major snowstorm to the northeast. And as for the Midwest, I'd say it's more likely than not at this point you will experience a significant snowstorm, as it seems like both of the two main computer models are in pretty good agreement with that. There's going to be enough cold air behind this next trough moving through that will set the conditions for a highly unstable environment to see a heavy amount of snowfall. We see the European model takes a very similar track and snowfall accumulation forecast as the GFS model, and if I were to continue to move forward, we see a very similar forecast as well for the Northeast. So there's a pretty good agreement between the two main computer models, which could point to the fact that it's a little bit more certain that this third major snowstorm will occur. So it's definitely something to keep in mind in the northern Midwest, where by next week you could experience just very heavy snowfall right around midweek between Wednesday and Thursday time period. We're gonna need to wait and see exactly how much snow, but I'd say it's likely at this point the Midwest will experience a major snowstorm. And as for these first two snowstorms, of course it's inevitable at this point you will experience likely around 6 inches of snow right around northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. For the second snowstorm, I'd say the agreement is also pretty likely that these areas will experience anywhere from 1 to 3 to 6 inches of snow, so you need to pay close attention to that. The certainty is fairly high, so definitely keep that in mind over the next week for the United States, as it should be quite busy when it comes to snowstorms. And I'll keep you guys updated regarding this third snowstorm, which still has a decent amount of uncertainty at this time. Now, taking a look at the current radar, the current snowstorm we're keeping track of, we do see the area of snow is still very small, but that's expected to quickly change as the storm continues to head further eastward, and once the thunderstorm clusters really cluster together to create a heavy snow band right around northern Iowa as well as southern Minnesota. So the worst of snow still has yet to come for a lot of northern Iowa and of course Wisconsin, which likely will impact you guys by tomorrow morning, so make sure to pay close attention to that. Taking a look at the Futurecast radar to see when you guys should expect the worst of the snowfall. So the worst of the snowfall for northern Iowa should happen during the overnight hours, which may be good news because it occurs right before rush hour. But during your rush hour, right around the northeastern portion of Iowa and southern Wisconsin, it should be pretty bad when it comes to snowfall. We should see snow heavy at times, and this snow will eventually move towards Milwaukee by, I'd say, the Friday afternoon time frame before fizzling out as a result of a lack of instability. So definitely keep that in mind. And of course, we're paying close attention to this next trough moving through. That's expected to enter an area where the instability will just be strong enough for a snowstorm to impact the Northeast. Taking a look at the North Atlantic Oscillation, we do see now we're deep in the negative North Atlantic Oscillation, which could explain the reason why we're expected to receive a lot more snowstorms throughout the northern United States. We're going to see a lot more cold air move into the northern United States, as well as of course a higher unstable environment for more snowstorms to develop as a result of these more pronounced jet stream dips. So that's going to be something to keep in mind. Taking a look at what typically happens during a negative Arctic oscillation, we do see that the jet stream winds are weaker, the ridge and the low pressure system located in the Atlantic are weaker, so the winds aren't necessarily trapping the cold air right around the polar regions during a negative Arctic oscillation, which gives the cold air more of a possibility of moving southward into the United States. While during a positive Arctic oscillation, the opposite happens. Now, here's my snowfall accumulation forecast over the next several days for the entirety of the northern United States. Keep in mind this forecast is subject to change. Forecasting snowfall accumulation between now and 7 days is still somewhat difficult, but this is what you should expect as of right now, where a large portion of the northern Midwest should expect over a foot of snow over the next 7 days. This includes the northern portion of Minnesota, the Dakotas, the northern portion of Wisconsin and Michigan, as well as the interior Northeast. You could experience over a foot of snow, especially as this third snowstorm moves through, and it's so uncertain how far north or south the snow will move along Northeast, but I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content, and I hope you guys have a great day.